Hi guys, my name is Vasi and I'm one of the growth mentors in the Growth Mentor platform, and I'm super stoked to be with you for the Growth Mentor Summit. We'll be talking about content marketing today and how to create your first or maybe just your new and better content marketing plan. So I hope you enjoy my talk and let's dive in. As I mentioned already, I'm part of the Growth Mentor platform. Growth Mentor is a great service where I, as a mentor, can connect with amazing new companies and founders who are looking for some initial advice or for anything that will make their product better. So I hope after this talk you have enough information on what I do and how I can be of service, and we can chat later on Growth Mentor. What I do on a daily basis is I help brands build meaningful relationships with their customers and scale them through digital channels, which essentially covers a big part of different marketing communications and different marketing campaigns. But my greatest passion of all is content marketing. This is the one thing that I believe can really build a two-way communication process for brands and their audience and their potential customers. And I feel that far too often as marketers, we are just in selling mode, while what we need to do is be a bit more mindful and careful about what we provide users with and what we provide potential clients with. So I'll be talking to you today about building your content marketing plan in a way that actually brings value to users and creates this strong two-way relationship that you need in order to differentiate on something other than price. So what's the issue with content marketing planning? The couple of things that I hear most often from clients look something like that. So my clients would usually say, okay, we are not that creative, we can't really generate cool content ideas. And as you'll see later, it's not necessarily something that you need to be like amazing artist to do. You don't have to be as creative as most people think in order to create valuable content. The next thing is people say we lack the resources. We either don't have the time or we feel that this requires a whole host of designers and video producers and content writers, and we just can't invest that much currently. And to tackle this, I'll show you a very lean approach to building content and to creating something of value. And the third thing is most people feel that, oh God, like there's just so many channels, I really can't cover them all, and I'm feeling overwhelmed by the amount of information out there and the amount of touch points. And what we'll see here is that building a good content plan enables you to reuse your content and develop it in different channels without breaking the bank or losing your sanity. So how do we solve this? What do we do in order to make content planning easier and more effective? There are a couple of prerequisites to create a content marketing plan that works. The first thing is you need to know who your audience is. You need to understand your potential customers and the people who would, even if they don't buy from you, would be willing to see your content, to interact with your brand, and then maybe at a later stage they will be able to buy. Then the next thing is you don't just need to create that mental model of the person, but you need to know what they want to know and how they want to be entertained. Those are the two most common uses of content marketing. We're usually either informing users or we are creating something of value that's just entertaining and that puts a smile on their face or creates a different emotion. So we need to know what they want to feel and what they want to know. The third thing would be knowing where to find them. So, as I already mentioned, there's a ton of different channels out there, and it's really overwhelming to think, oh God, I need to be in every one of those. But what you can do is by knowing which channels people use and what types of content they want to see and they want to interact with, you'll be able to better understand what channels you need to be in. And you can choose just one or two or maybe three at most and still build a lasting impression. And the last thing is obviously just getting your hands dirty and doing the work. So, creating a specific plan, something that you can follow, something that's actionable enough so you don't feel like you're constantly in catch up mode and you know what's coming up in your editorial calendar. So, let's do the work. What you see is both those slides and the handout I created with additional exercises. You'll be able to find these on my website, valchanova.me/growth mentor. So you can download these and try to go through the whole process on your own in practice. So the first step, as I said, is knowing who your audience is, creating a mental model of the user you're talking to when you're creating your content. I find this incredibly useful because it's very hard to sit in front of my laptop and start writing a new blog post with a general concept of my audience. But it's much easier to create that same content if I can imagine a specific person that I'm talking to. So if I think about Liz, who I met recently, who's creating a brand of handmade jewelry, and I'm actually trying to explain to her what she needs in order to create content for her brand in a consistent basis. This would be much an easier task than if I'm just talking to women solopreneurs aged 20 to 35 living in big metropolitan areas. Putting that face to the person actually makes our content better because it makes it much more personal. So the first tool that I would usually use in order to create this mental model of a person would be Facebook Audience Insights. Facebook Audience Insights is a very valuable tool because you can use it even without already being an active advertiser. All you need is a Facebook business account, which is easy enough to set up. And what Facebook Audience Insight lets you do is survey a potential audience that you want to target, be it your Facebook page, or the fans of your Facebook page, or a general audience of people on Facebook where you want to see, for example, if people interested in my subject matter, what's their demographics, what other things they're interested in. So let's go through a specific example. I've pre-recorded a demo that I hope you'll find useful. So what we need to do first is go to Audience Insights. So within your Business Manager, in the top menu, you'll find Audience Insights. And once this loads, you see the option of either surveying everyone on Facebook or people connected to your page. So I would generally choose everyone on Facebook and then select specific interests. So here I'm choosing some hiking interests for a client who's starting to create an online store for hiking equipment. So I would add stuff like hiking boots or hiking equipment. So what this lets me see is the age and gender demographics of my audience. So if we're targeting here the US, we see that it skews slightly more male, and it's focused a lot in the 35 to 54 age demographic. What you see in the background in gray is, let's stop that for a sec. What you see here in the background in gray is the general Facebook audience for people in the US, while in blue you would see the specific interest group that we've chosen, so people who are interested in hiking. So what you want to look for are those places where the blue bars go higher than the gray bars behind them. So this means that it's much more probable for your users to be, say, married, as you see here, than the general Facebook demographic. Same goes for here. It's much more probable that they've finished grad school than the general Facebook audience. And what we can also see below are job titles. So here you see again this comparison, how much more likely it is, but what you can do is also see the most common job titles. So those are people in management, people in sales, people who are most spending a lot of their time on laptops sitting in front of computers. So what they want to do is hike during the weekend. And here what you can see is the different page likes that these people have. So for the people who are interested in hiking boots and hiking equipment, what's the most common page likes that they have? So here we already see some news and media sites that are targeted at hiking. So what I would do is go to those websites, see what content they create, and try to replicate that same content for my new brand. What we can see here as well is that they're coffee addicts, so they're interested in Black Rifle Coffee Company. I see some of my competitors here, REI and North Face. What I can see down here as well are different brands that they're interested in. So for TV networks, NBC Olympics, so this means they're interested in sports as well. Blue Apron, so they might be interested in creating meals on the go while hiking. Dollar Shave Club, which means I would probably need to use some humor in my content to appeal to them. Lowe's Home Improvement, so these guys are handy, so I can talk about more physical activities as well. Classic rock, so maybe we can create a playlist for our users to listen to while they're hiking. And Bark Box, you see here, a pet store, which means that they will be interested in hiking activities with their dogs, for example. Here as well, in terms of locations, we can see the most common places people are coming from. So New York, Los Angeles, I would need to make sure to create special delivery fees for these places. And here what we can see is their activity. So they're using both desktop and mobile to access Facebook. And as you see here at the top, they're also interested in ads. So they click a lot of ads. As you can see, this gives me a rough idea, and I would jot down all of those things to start building my audience persona. So not necessarily a buyer persona, not necessarily someone whom I want to get money from at this specific stage of my business, but more of an audience persona. So someone who will be interested in my content and what I need to cover in terms to appeal to those people. What you can learn from audience insights we already saw, so job positions, age categories, their online behaviors, so are they clicking on ads or not? Are they liking pages or not? And you can get a pretty good idea of that from Facebook's Audience Insights page, which you can see here linked. So you can open it up or just Google Facebook Audience Insights and you'll fall on the same page and see more details about how to use the tool. But it's invaluable when building a persona and thinking about, okay, what's my audience interested in? What other brands are they following? And what types of content appeal to them? Different groups you can analyze are covered here. So what you can do, as we just did, is covering interest-based audiences. So people interested in hiking, what else are they interested in? You can review your page's fans, which might be helpful in the sense that if you've created your page the natural way, so you have users who like the page through organic means, that's a great way to start. If you've done a bunch of raffles and amassed a big audience at the beginning of creating your page, and those guys are not necessarily that engaged with your page anymore, I would probably skip that. What you can do as well is review your website visitors. So what Facebook lets you do is install a Facebook pixel on your website, and then you can build an audience of the people who come to your site and see what are they interested in, what pages they like, and what's their demographic. You can create a separate audience from highly engaged visitors. So again, this is building custom audiences on Facebook. You can check out email lists, so the people who subscribe to your newsletter, what are their interests, what's their profile. You can check some of your big competitors. These don't always pop up when you start typing in interests, but for some big pages, they might show up in the interest section where we typed in hiking boots and hiking equipment at the beginning of the demo. And you can also check out different audiences that you're advertising to. So for example, if you're already advertising to, say, males aged 24 to 40 in the Oregon area, you'll be able to add that as a saved audience here and review those users and what they're interested in. John Loomer, one of the big Facebook advertising gurus, has created a very useful piece on like what types of audiences you can run through Audience Insights. So I would suggest you check that out and you get some ideas on what types of audiences you can survey. The next tool that you can use to create your buyer persona would be Google Analytics. In Google Analytics, you get information about the demographics of your audience. As you see here, for example, this is a screenshot from my website's Google Analytics. So we see I'm mainly popular among young professionals, 25 to 34-year-olds, and both male and female audiences. And what I can get from Google Analytics on top of gender and age group would be the locations of my users and some of their interests and what devices they use to consume my content. The information on demographics and interests is something that you need to manually let Google Analytics know that you want to record. And once you do that, it's good practice to also include that information in your privacy policy so that people know that you're actually collecting this type of information. So you can refer to the support knowledge base of Google to see how this might be phrased. But it's important to let users know that. So what do I mean in terms of interests? First off, actually, something more important. I've been talking here about like what's the biggest audience, where are most of my users coming from, or what age group are most of my users in. But what we need to think about is also what's the characteristics of my most profitable clients. So if you already have that information in Google Analytics, I would urge you to not only look at the biggest segment, but the most profitable one. And what I wanted to show you here as an example would be this screenshot from a client I was working for. So what you see is that they have a big audience in France, they have a lot of people coming from my home country, Bulgaria. But what you can see is that actually people who are constituting some smaller portions of their visitors, for example Spain, which is just 5% compared to the 9% in France, actually have a much higher conversion rate to creating an account with the platform. So what this means is that although Spaniards are a smaller percentage of the audience, they're actually much more interested in what we have to sell, and we might want to think about them specifically as a target audience and try to cater to their needs as well, because they're already showing signs that they're much more interested in our solution. So think not just about the largest percentage, but also the most profitable one. Here's another example. This is an online store, and what we see here is that the female group is much bigger, so females constitute 67%, so 2/3 of the audience. What we will see as well is that They are slightly more engaged than males, so they're looking at more pages per session and they're spending a bit more time on the website. But in the end, if you do the math, it turns out that males are spending 21% more on average. So even though we might be tempted to create content just for female audiences, we don't want to discard males as well because they are more profitable as clients. As I mentioned, the other thing that you can get from Google Analytics would be interests. And what you can see here are two categories. One is affinity categories. So these are topics that people are just interested in general. So this might be, say, looking at recipes online would put me in the food and dining affinity category. But if I'm actually looking for food to buy online, this would put me in the in-market segment for foods and beverages. So in-market audiences are people who are specifically looking with transactional intent. You can get some ideas here, although as you see in the percentages here, these audiences are very small and you can't really see like, okay, a ton of people from my visitors are interested in this specific topic. They're interested in more than one in general. You can also get this type of information from polls on your website, and one tool I really like to use is called Hotjar. So what it lets you do is create this small pop-up survey that you can add to your site, and you can ask questions to better understand who your audience is. So you can ask questions like, can you present yourself in one sentence? Who are you? What made you visit our website today? So what information are you looking for, or what's your pain as a client? Did you find what you were looking for, or is there any specific information that you need, which will give you ideas about future content to write on your website? So that's also quite useful. In the end, what we would have is something like that. So creating a persona profile that lets you understand what's not just the demographics of this persona, but also what their interests are. So what media do they go to, what channels they use, are there any celebrities that they follow through the page likes that you saw in Audience Insights, are there any specific brands they're interested in. And this will give you an idea on how to communicate with your users and what types of information would be important to them. So the next thing you would want to look at is knowing what your audience cares about. So what are their more specific interests and what are the topics they need content on. The first place where we can look would be Facebook Insights for your own Facebook page, and what you can do is export some of the data there and see what information you can get out of it. So you'll be able to see what's the amount of people who are interested in your content in specific posts from your page. So this would let you see, for example, if we compare the total number of people reached with a specific post and the number of people who've engaged with it, so clicked on it, shared it, liked it, commented on it. And we will be able to see the post with the highest engagement rate. And you can then say, okay, obviously this type of posts works better for my audience, be it because of the topic or because of the format. You just need to look through these and see some of the similarities. And the reason that I'm advising you to do that for your specific Facebook page, rather than just looking at best practices and looking at competitors only, is because depending on your audience and depending on your brand specifics, these working posts, so to say, so the successful posts, will look dramatically different. So here's some examples. Both of these posts that I'm going to show are from brands that I've been working with, that both of these posts got 25% engagement rate. So a quarter of the people who saw them in the newsfeed actually took an action to check that information out and to interact with the brand. So One of those is in Bulgarian, so you won't be really able to read it, but on the left-hand side, you have a group of fitness instructors who are creating personalized training sessions for their customers. So it's a monthly subscription where you book online calls with your coach. And here on the right-hand side, you see a very successful post from one online store and a physical showroom that sell luxury furniture and accessories. You can see from just looking at these that they're dramatically different. One of them is not that strong on the design point. The other's photos are very stylized, very posh, very high quality, but they both work for their respective audiences. So you always need to think about, okay, if my audience is interested in these topics and my audience is reacting well to this type of content, what more can I do to create additional content that's similar to that, and how can I improve it? And you can do that for best results on your own Facebook page with information from your own Facebook page. The next thing that you can do as well is check out what your competitors are doing and see what types of posts are successful for them. And the way you can do that is keeping an eye on your competitors through Facebook's Pages to Watch option. So what Pages to Watch lets you do is you can add other pages that are similar to your own Facebook page and look on a weekly basis for high engagement rates for these specific pages and find the posts that were most engaging for your competitors over this 1 week period of time. So I'll show you an example here with my own Facebook page and the pages I follow. You can only get that information on a weekly basis, but I think that's actually a good thing because this urges you to check out constantly on your competitors and see what they're doing and what's working for them. And although I wouldn't advise you to be basing your strategy only on what your competitors are doing, it's good to keep an eye on them all the time. So here's the example from my own channel. This is my Facebook page, and if you go to the top and you go to Insights, you'll be able to access the Pages to Watch feature. When you scroll down on the overview section, you see the pages that I've added, and here you can add your own. So in the Pages to Watch, you use the blue button called Add Pages, and you can see them. So you see here the total page likes and the engagement per week, and what we see here is that Copy Hackers actually got a high engagement for the week, and we want to see more. And in the post section, you can see the top posts from these pages. So here, for example, we see three actually posts from Copy Hackers that have acquired a certain number of engagements, and we can actually, even within here, just check these posts out and see what's working from them and what's driving attention. So we would like to see here, okay, we can check this out and see, okay, obviously posts with photos are working well, and posts with additional copy, as we saw, are working for Copy Hackers, so we might create similar posts for our page in the future. The next thing where you can look for ideas about engaging content is your own website. So you've been creating some amount of content over the past months or the past years. So you should check out through Google Analytics what posts resonate with your target audience. And these are some of the posts for a company I worked with before, Enhansive. We wrote here about topics related to career development because it's a platform for building resumes. So what you see here is that we have a couple of great posts which are averaging more than 20 minutes of reading time per post. So that's pretty huge. you can even compare it to the others. None of them get any closer to that. And what you can do as well is combine these metrics and look at pairs of metrics, because sometimes looking at the time on page can't really give you all the answers. And even if the time on page is high, it might just mean that your post was written in a manner where people need to spend more time going through it and trying to understand what you meant, which isn't actually good user experience, and it's not providing a lot more customer value than if you wrote a much more easily scannable post that let you as a user go through the information and retain more information in a shorter period of time. So what I'm showing you here is a blog post that average a very high average time on page. It's a blog post that I wrote about Google Data Studio and how to use it for extracting metrics. And what we can see as well, though, is that looking at the time alone, it gives me an understanding that this was a high quality post and people spent a lot of time, so maybe they got a lot of information out of it. And what I also see that the bounce rate is 10% lower than the average bounce rate for my website, which means that people were engaged enough with the content to check out other pages on my site. And that's already a second signal that this information was valuable. So I'm already pretty sure that this post worked well and provided value for users. The next place where I can look for topics that my audience would be interested in is actually looking at keyword data and trying to do keyword research in order to cluster different types of information in specific topics. So this is a tool called Answer the Public. What it does, it lets you add in a keyword. So here I've added WordPress themes as a keyword. And what it then provides you with is a list of questions that people asked or of related searches. So what you'll be able to see here is, okay, what are the topics that people are interested in relating to WordPress themes? And if I'm a website that's helping people create a WordPress website, I will be able to answer some of these questions, create content around them, and in such a way help my potential clients and show my brand in front of those potential clients. And by providing that value, by providing these answers, I will be creating content that's quality enough. So you can see here questions like, are WordPress themes safe? Are WordPress themes open source? And can WordPress themes be customized? Each of these can potentially be a separate blog post or a separate short video on my Facebook page, or infographic even, or some other format of content that I want to create around these topics. And I'm pretty sure that these will resonate with my users, because I already have some signals that this is information that's interesting to people, that people are actively asking these questions. So it's answerthepublic.com, where you can find all of these and play around with some keywords and seeing what questions people are asking around them. The next tool that I would use in this case is called Ubersuggest. It was bought recently by expert marketer Neil Patel and went under his own brand. But if you look for ubersuggest.io, you will still be redirected to the right tool. So what Ubersuggest does is a free keyword research tool. So it lets you review information about different keywords, and it also lets you check out your competitors' domains and what keywords they rank for. So this will give me an idea of the types of queries people make in order to get to my competitors, and in order to maybe find the information on their websites. Here is again a demo. I've added the keyword hiking just to get a broad idea of what's interesting to people in that category. And first we'll see the seasonality of that keyword on the main screen. You see here below that during the months of July to November, the monthly search volume is highest, so people are most interested in hiking during that period. And here we can see hiking near me or hiking trails or stuff like specific places where people want to hike to, so hiking to the Hollywood sign and hiking the Grand Canyon. So I can write posts about specific ways to get to those specific places, or hiking quotes here. This gives me an idea of a series of Facebook posts with quotes about hiking, or questions people ask, for example. So seeing here, can hiking help me lose weight, or is hiking good for the body and mind? So I can write posts about how hiking helps mental health, for example. Or hiking or jogging, hiking versus jogging. So what's the difference in physical activity between these two things, for example? And I can also add in domains for some of my competitors. So in terms of hiking, this might be REI, the American brand. And I will be able to see the keywords that lead to content on the REI website. So for example, here, photo editing. Of course, if people are going hiking, they're interested in different ways to get photos and memories of this trip, so I can write about that. Or dehydrating, so what are the potential health risks that we need to be aware of during hiking? Or here I see the top pages that people look at on the REI website, so the whole category of expert advice that people are looking at on the REI site. So this is general advice on different outdoor activities like kayaking in this example. So I can create content around that. I can create big, meaty blog posts about different outdoor activities. And this will be information that's already interesting to my users. So you can play around with such keyword tools to get different questions that people ask or different topics they're interested in, and what we get in the end is something like that. So this is a project I did with a company that sells designer pet houses, and what they wanted to do was build content around specific topics. So after doing this keyword research, I created a bunch of topic clusters for them. So for example, what people need to know about pets at home. So can pets drink distilled water, for example, or when pets go to bed? So these are questions that we recreated in the form of blog posts. Or for example, the category of pet health was really important to people. So on the one hand side, can pets actually get allergies or other diseases that we know as human ones, or how can pets impact a human's health? So for example, how pets reduce stress. So we could create content around that as well. And here I'm not just talking about blog posts, although that's easiest for me as a content writer. Here we can talk about short Facebook videos where we talk with veterinarians about different health concerns around pets, for example. So this will already create content in video formats that my audience might be interested in, and it will also let me build on the trust that people generally have around doctors to get my brand some of that trust back, to associate my brand with these high trust figures. So these are some interesting ideas that we can get off of keyword research. The third step is knowing where our audience is. So we know who those people are now, we know what topics they're interested in, but what formats do we use to create content around these, and where do we actually find these people? And one easy way to get that type of information would be going to a tool like SimilarWeb to stalk your competitors and see where they're getting their traffic from. This helps us understand where the users of Brazil's Burger King website, for example, where are these people coming from? Which means what channels they are usually using in order to get to Burger King, for example. So here we would see stuff that's logical enough. For example, direct traffic is high because Burger King is a very popular brand, so you can just start typing in Burger King and the domain will autofill on your mobile device, for example. And we can also see that search is high, so people are just typing in Burger King in Google and clicking the first result and getting to the domain. But we also see here that there's some bunch of social traffic. So if I was just looking at that during my regular research, I would be thinking, okay, social probably equals Facebook or maybe Twitter. But I'm not that familiar with the Brazilian audience. And what turns out is that under this category of social traffic, we actually do have Facebook, but we have a higher proportion of people coming from WhatsApp, which I would never have thought about if I was just doing this research, because WhatsApp is not that popular in the other markets where I work on, but apparently for the Brazilian audience it works quite well. So these can uncover some of the social channels that you need to be on in order to reach that same audience. And you can create a public chat on WhatsApp to talk to those people and maybe provide them a different version of burgers instead of Burger King. And the other thing that we can look at is what channels bring traffic to our own website. So again, diving into Google Analytics, looking at the different categories of traffic that we get from our own audience. And where are those people coming from? So here you would see quite a lot of social traffic for this website and some organic search. So this means already I need to pay some attention to SEO and create content that's SEO optimized, but I can also think about different social platforms and where are these people coming from. So I can dive deeper into this channel group of social, and I can actually see different channels where people are coming from. So here, this again is statistics from my own blog. People are coming from regular stuff like Facebook and Twitter, but there's also a bunch of people coming from Reddit and from stuff like Goodreads, because I write a lot of reviews on Goodreads about the books I read, and for some of them I have an extended version of the review on my website. So that's why this traffic is coming from Goodreads, which is not that common for a lot of marketing blogs. And again, coming to something I mentioned earlier, here we want to look not just at the sheer numbers, so how many of people I'm getting from that specific channel, but also what's their quality. So here, for example, I got like a decent amount of traffic from StumbleUpon, which doesn't even exist anymore, but I'm keeping this example because it's very specific. But what you can actually see on second thought is that this audience is just like vanity hits. I got those 500, almost 500 people, but they spent on average 5 seconds on the website, so I'm not even sure that the web page even loaded for them. So looking at the number of people coming from to the site is one metric that you need to look at, but you always need to pair it with something that lets you know if this audience is actually high or low quality. and you need to base your decisions on being on a specific channel and being active in that channel based off on that as well. So maybe I don't need to spend so much time on a network like StumbleUpon in the future. So what I will get out of this is a list of the channels that I want to start developing, the formats that I want to develop. So for example, if I'm doing Instagram and Facebook, this means I need to create some amount of visual content as well. So maybe doing some live videos to beat the algorithm and talk to people real time would be a good idea. And I would put down some frequency cap of the amount of posts I want to have per week and how active I want to be in those different channels. One thing on frequency here, people usually ask me that, and they're like, okay, so you definitely need to post on Instagram like 6 times per day, right? And you're like, guys, no. The reason I've put such low numbers in this example is that I believe that the fewer posts you have, the higher quality you get, because you're not constantly scrambling to create new content, but you want to spend enough time on each post to make sure it's valuable. So to me, it makes more sense to post 2 or 3 times per week if this means that the quality of your content will be higher. Obviously, if you're just churning out stuff, it doesn't matter if you're doing it on a daily or a weekly basis if you don't put your mind to it. But if you've done all the steps we've mentioned so far and you've really thought about what these people are interested in and what topics you want to cover, you will be able to create higher quality content anyway. And the last thing would be putting all these things together. So what does that look like? On the one hand side, I would create a list of different formats that I want to use. So these are some content ideas that you can try out. And I've developed them in 2 columns. On the left-hand side, you have stuff that's evergreen, stuff you can post almost as often as you like without losing any like newsworthiness to the post. So this would be stuff like quotes or trivia or quizzes. So for example, for my pet client, we created this category of curious facts about cats and dogs, and people are super interested in that. And obviously the fact that a dog's nose print is unique for every dog, this doesn't have any news value, so it will be as applicable as a post today compared to in 2 weeks' time. So you can create a bunch of these and use them in order to have the minimum amount of content you need to push through each platform on a weekly basis. And then on the right hand side, you have stuff that's specifically related to your brand and your products. So these can be detailed shots of how your product looks, or behind the scenes of what's the feeling of your office and what's the environment where the product gets created. So these are some types of content that you can try to use. And another matrix of content that I really like is one that comes from Storyfuel. So you can find more details about it at storyfuel.co, and you'll be able to see some ideas of like how you can link the different types of content here on top with the different formats in vertical. So for example, if you want to do a history post, you can create a written piece about your brand and how it got started. Or you can create a slideshow with the same information and post it on SlideShare if your audience is active on that channel. So look through these and think about different formats and different content types that you can use, and try to employ the different topics that you've already covered during the keyword research and topic research phase. And the end result would be something like that. Having a specific editorial calendar that we have where we look at on a monthly basis and we say, okay, for those 4 channels, for example, that we're covering here, Facebook, Instagram, email, and blog, how often do we have content in each one? And what's the topics of this content? So for example, here we have presenting an interior, so that's the content plan for one of my clients who's into luxury furniture. So what we want to present here is create a blog post with an interior that was made entirely with products from our store. And we'll create a detailed blog post about it, explaining what the whole process was. And we'll show before and after shots as a Facebook post where we'll tell a bit of the story, give people a teaser, and then refer them to our blog. So here you can also see that for some types of content, we'll be rehashing those in different social media, in different channels. So this might be something like the most interesting new products. This could be a Facebook post with 6 or 7 different photos presenting new products that we have in the store over the last month. Or it can be a full Instagram post or a stories format presenting these specific products as well. So we'll be able to use the same topic but create it in different formats. And this, as I mentioned, is the last step. It's the place where we get very specific and we get very actionable. And then the next step obviously would be just to roll up your sleeves and start creating this content. So that's what you need to do in order to create your Facebook content marketing plan. And what I wanted to say finally is that I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope the information you saw here was valuable. And the 2 things that I would urge you to do is, first of all, go on my website and download the slides and handouts. But more importantly, I would be really happy to talk to you and to hear more about what are your content marketing needs. And maybe I can give you some one-on-one advice as well. So I am on Growth Mentor, and currently all my sessions are free. So this is a great opportunity for you to talk to someone who has some experience in content marketing, and we can bounce some ideas off each other and talk about like what your content marketing journey can look like. Thanks a lot, and I hope to talk to you all soon.